first Republican president and the 16th President of the United States. He was in office from 1861 to 1865. Did you know that Lincoln was the first major leader in the United States to feel that women should be allowed to vote? Abraham Lincoln didn't have a college degree, free of college debt. He's kept his important documents in his hat. What else does he have in there? Hillary Clinton's emails?
He was most famous for opposing slavery and passing the 13th Amendment. Lincoln's most important political position was that of an abolitionist, who was against the use of slaves. According to Lincoln, slavery was an unqualified evil to the Negro, the white man, and the state. Lincoln also argued repeatedly that slavery was against the teachings of Christianity, whose principles included the freedom of all people, either black or white. In his first inaugural address, Lincoln declared, he had no purpose, directly or indirectly, to interfere with slavery in the states where it exists. He even reiterated this pledge in his first message to Congress on July 4, 1861, when the Civil War was 3 months old. In the American Civil War, no, not that one, President Abraham Lincoln carefully framed the conflict as concerning the preservation of the Union rather than the abolition of slavery. Once the war was over, he felt that it was crucial to reunite the Union and the Confederacy back into one United States. Lincoln felt that the bloody Civil War was, in some way, a punishment brought on by God for the sin of keeping slaves. He was also the first to create a federal income tax in 1861. Lincoln delivered the Gettysburg Address on November 19, 1863, in less than 3 minutes.
The Emancipation Proclamation was issued by Lincoln 1 month later, after the qualified Union victory in the Battle of Antietam, to warn all states still in rebellion on January 1, 1863, that slavery would not be legal. With it, the final proclamation, which committed the government and armed forces of the United States to liberate the slaves in rebel states as an act of justice warranted by the Constitution upon military necessity. The proclamation exempted border slave states and all parts of 3 Confederate states controlled by the Union Army, on the grounds that these areas were not in rebellion against the United States. It proclaimed the freedom of slaves in the 10 Confederate states still in rebellion. Even though it did not abolish slavery completely, it gave the Union generals an excuse not to return runaway slaves back to their Southern masters. This helped change the focus of the war and pave the way for the African Americans to fight for their freedom. He would declare the slaves then, henceforward, and forever free. This was a firm demonstration of the president's executive power and helped prevent the involvement of foreign nations in the Civil War.
The 13th Amendment stated, "Neither slavery nor involuntary servitude except as punishment for a crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction." April 8, 1864, the Senate passed the 13th Amendment. June 15, 1864, the House of Representatives initially defeated the 13th Amendment by a vote of 93 in favor, 65 opposed, and 23 not voting, which is less than 2/3 majority needed to pass a constitutional amendment. February 1, 1865, President Abraham Lincoln signed a joint resolution submitting the proposed 13th Amendment to the states. February 1st, 1865, President Abraham Lincoln signed a joint resolution submitting the proposed 13th Amendment to the states. And what did that influence? Ratified in 1868, the 14th Amendment increased the liberties and rights granted by the Bill of Rights to former slaves. After the 14th Amendment, the 15th Amendment was ratified, giving African American men the right to vote. The Emancipation Proclamation helped make these rights and liberties available for newly freed people, as it was one of the first steps towards the freedom of former slaves.